Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to today's webinar, which is the first in a new short series of best practice webinars on upgrading EnterpriseOne. And today's webinar will be focusing on planning your upgrade. The other two webinars in the series will focus on executing your upgrade, and the third one will be focusing on testing your upgrade. But today is all around planning your upgrade. My name is David Hunt, and I'm the Strategy Director here at DWS, and I'm joined today by Pierre Bodenstein, who is one of our very experienced Senior Solutions Architects. If you'd like to raise any questions about any aspect of upgrading EnterpriseOne, we will have time at the end of the session to answer them. And do make use of Pierre's experience, because he really is a very, very experienced person with EnterpriseOne. He's actually been involved in quite a number of upgrades, so do feel free to pick his brains. And if you'd like to raise any questions, you'll find a questions panel to the right-hand side of your screen in your dashboard. So do feel free to raise questions, and we'll answer them, or as many as we can, at the end of today's session. Now, whatever stage you are at with your EnterpriseOne system, you'll either be at the initial implementation stage, you'll be going through some kind of upgrade, or you'll be looking at trying to stay current, having gone through potentially a major upgrade program. And increasingly, people are finding that adopting a code current or a stay current policy actually makes a lot more sense than experiencing major upgrades every 5 to 10 years. But whatever stage you're at with your life cycle, you need to actually be planning what you're going to be doing, whether it's upgrading or testing, and so planning will play quite a key part of what we're going to be focusing on during this series of webinars. Now, when planning your upgrade, there are some key factors that warrant serious attention, and these fall into the following categories: reducing your modified footprint, identification of the types of modifications that you have and how they will impact the upgrade, determining the best upgrade approach to adopt, and calculating just how much effort will actually be required. Now, in each of these categories, there are a number of key questions and other considerations that will help you to identify a number of risks for the project, and we will try to address as many of these as we can in today's webinar. Now, it is quite common for JDE Edwards EnterpriseOne's customers to customize their implementation by making modifications to the standard programs or objects that are contained in EnterpriseOne, because they want to tailor the way that it works to better fit the individual business processes or other specific needs that you may have. Now, over time, these customized objects can become a major support issue as they become further adapted due to the changing needs of the users, or due to changes made by Oracle to the standard application. In addition, many customized objects become obsolete, either because enhancements made by Oracle remove the need for the customization, or because the customized objects have since been superseded. Each EnterpriseOne upgrade, whether it's a major version upgrade or a minor code current uplift, represents an opportunity to review which customizations or modifications are still required. The ability to identify unused modifications will reduce the effort required for the upgrade, as time will not be wasted uplifting the unwanted code, and will reduce the future support and maintenance burden. Now, as you head into the planning phase of your EnterpriseOne upgrade, there is a series of questions you'll probably be asking yourselves, and those questions will identify a number of risks for the project. Firstly, where do my mods exist, and how extensive are they? This is pretty fundamental, but if you can't answer this question, it can seriously impact the project. Typically, this may be done by running CNC reports. However, the modified flag search is often turned on unnecessarily, which will result in an overstatement of the number of modified objects in your system. Often, this will be by a matter of hundreds, if not thousands. More dangerous, of course, is if the flag is not set, so you fail to identify modified objects that you will need to be uplifted to the new code set. Knowing the extent of modifications is a fundamental and very important requirement of all upgrade planning. If you cannot answer this question, it can also seriously impact the project. Existing Oracle tools may under or overstate the objects in the affected list, or they may simply indicate the object list without any concern given to your custom or copies of standard objects, nor to the effect of any net change coming from Oracle's new release code, and how those code changes impact your existing modifications. The more extensive and complex the mods, the longer it will take to uplift the code. Of course, you need to identify the types of modifications and exactly how they're going to impact the upgrade. The modifications can take several forms. You may have created new custom code, modified standard code, or taken copies of the standard code and modified those. Each different type of modification brings its own challenges with different levels of complexity. Copies, for example, tend to be the most complex and pure custom codes the least. And it's worth noting here that pure custom objects are those developed from scratch with no direct impact on other objects in the system. You may of course rely on your technical documentation, but is your documentation actually up to date? Is it accurate? And is it comprehensive? Can you really afford to trust your documentation? In our experience, even the most diligent of IT operations fails to maintain 100% accurate documentation of all their system modifications. And failing to identify modified code could cause system failure or render users inoperative as code they rely on has not been taken up to the new EnterpriseOne release. This can prove extremely costly. And of course, the very basic question, are those modifications still actually required? Assuming you are able to identify accurately all of the modifications you have made to your implementation of EnterpriseOne, how can you identify which are still required by the users? Now, it's important to know which of your enhancements work independently versus those that interact with and make calls to standard JDE objects. As an example, you may have two UBEs the same size. One UBE may work in isolation and is therefore standalone, whereas the other makes several calls to JD Edwards objects. In the second case, you need to understand by how much this UBE will be affected by the changes made to the standard JDE objects called by this UBE. Are you able to determine if the standard JD Edwards objects you call have actually changed or not? That can have serious consequences for your upgrade projects. You then need to consider if any mods you've made to standard objects will be affected. In a worst case scenario, Oracle may have removed this object completely. So how will that affect your system? And of course, we need to consider the version overrides. Version overrides give you the ability to modify a version's event rules logic and layout at the section level. The JD Edwards Object Analyzer can help you identify version overrides, but they are sometimes overlooked because while some organizations do not actually allow overrides as a policy, some actually do get shipped out of the box by Oracle, and power users may make copies of these, which in effect spawn new modifications, version overrides. In addition, these additional spawned modified versions may exist discreetly in prod. They do not need to follow the usual promotion path. And you need to determine whether it is better to keep your copies of standard and test them thoroughly to check if it still works the same, or should you recopy and reapply the changes you made to the new release. There's no absolute right or wrong answer to this. How you decide to upgrade these will depend on how many changes you made to the standard objects and how many changes Oracle made to those same objects. We now come to two really fundamental questions. Firstly, what is the best upgrade approach? Now, in order to determine the best upgrade approach, you need to determine whether it is better to keep your modified copies of standard objects and test them thoroughly to ensure they continue to function correctly, or determine the Oracle sourced enhancements to the based on objects in the 2 release and port these to your existing copy? Or do you recopy and reapply your modifications to a fresh copy of the new 2 releases based on objects? A little bit technical there, but it's quite a fundamental thing. Is really understanding what is going to be the least amount of effort when you're taking any of your modifications up to the new release. And of course, we come to the all-important question, what will your upgrade actually cost? Certainly, if you do not have the answer to the questions we've just discussed, this will be a bit like asking how long is a piece of string. So now I'd like to pose the following question. How do you estimate how long your upgrade will take? For many people, it is a bit of a guess, especially when it comes down to estimating uplifting your customizations, extensions, and such like from your current release to the new release of EnterpriseOne. Some aspects of your upgrade are easily quantifiable, such as installing new hardware and setting up new database, but when it comes to uplifting your custom code, this is notoriously difficult to estimate. How long will it take? What resources will you need, etc.? Now, it's at this point that customers tend to ask DWS if we will fix price the upgrade to remove many of these risks. Because of the tools that we have developed to analyze a customer's system and their upgrade challenge, we are able to estimate with a high degree of accuracy how much effort will be involved in the upgrade, such that we can fix the upgrade with absolute confidence. But let me first describe how others tend to estimate, and then I'll explain how we do it. Now, there was a theory that whatever the effort was required to develop the modified footprint originally, it would take about 1/3 of this effort to upgrade it. But how many people actually understand the true effort and time involved in originally, especially after they've undergone subsequent changes? And even if you do have this number, we know that the 1/3 rule is grossly inaccurate based on the hundreds of systems that we've analyzed and the hundreds of upgrades that we have carried out. Now, the method most people use is the sample and extrapolate method. This is where the vendor will request a sample of a small, a medium, and a large modified piece of code. They will review these samples and extrapolate them across your whole system, estimating how many of your mods will fall into each category. Again, this has proven to be a very hit-and-miss approach that relies on a lot of assumptions about the consistency of the complexity of the modified code. It is very risky to rely on this approach. It is, however, the best that most people are able to do without the specialist analysis tools that DWS has developed. So now I would like to introduce you to the DWS Dimension Analyze service, which takes the guesswork out of upgrade estimates. It's because of the accuracy we can achieve from our analysis that we can provide a fixed price quote for every upgrade service that we undertake. Dimension Analyze is a software-led service that enables our customers to audit and scope the E1 upgrades to a level of accuracy unseen before. We analyze every object, every line of code, and every spec setting down to a pixel movement level of detail. We identify the from and to base net change for every modified object, and we identify the net change type and severity of impact against every modified object. We estimate the upgrade effort required for every modified object, not just in man-days, but right down to hours and minutes level of detail. Now, I'd like to hand over at this point to Pierre, who's going to take us through a couple of case studies about some major upgrade analysis that we've actually undertaken for some clients, just to give you a pretty good example of the savings that we can make, particularly with your modified footprint. So, Pierre, would you like to take us through the case studies?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Hi everyone. Dave, if you would click one forward. So the first case study that we had was to look at the modified footprint of a customer and give them the details in man days. And this was an upgrade from 812 to 9.2. Let me just double check here. Ah, thanks, Dave. So the extract initially, when we did it, found that there was 3,800 potentially modified objects, of which 3,700 odd were normal objects, and about 160 or so were potentially the version overrides, like Dave was talking about just now. And during the audit phase, which was subsequently completed, as per the customer's instruction, to only exclude objects that's considered as definite exclude. So this comprised, for example, objects as flagged but had no differences, third-party objects. These results reduced the modified set to the optimum list, as we fondly refer to, of 2,700 objects against which we then formulated the estimate. A 30% reduction in the modified footprint. DWS also performed a standard audit phase process, making further recommendations. That's what we do classically against the objects we believe can be retired, owing to other criteria such as UBEs with the last run date of older than 18 months. By highlighting and subsequently excluding additional 1,000 odd objects, the pre-audit phase reduced the upgrade program approximately to 132 days. So if we summarize a bit, so of the 2,700 objects, the top 5% for over 55% accounted for over 55% of the upgrade. This is a significant number and points to the 135 objects requiring a lot more careful consideration. So that top 1% of objects, 27 or so, account for 32% of the overall upgrade time. So this was quite significant to the customer. So in closing, there were a large number of small objects or smaller ones, and then even a smaller number for very large objects. So this also adds some opportunities with potentially reducing the modified footprint and a number of days. So as we analyzed and clicked through this, so we looked at the breakdown of the custom objects to determine the extent of which the access standard JDE Edwards object, like tables, business functions, business views, etc., that might have changed. And these new objects with no or minor, 9 small standard hooks are separated out into their own category, and we refer to them as pure custom objects. So little to no upgrade development is technically required for those type of ones, compared to the original development estimate, because we just have to check them out and have a review and then check them back in again. So it's anticipated being needed that these objects ensure the compatibility with the upgrade, and that's why you would go and just validate them. So the DWS Dimension Professional toolset allows you to view and extract the nature of all of these objects. So the developer, the analyst can understand the level of change that's required when you go and you do the upgrading and the testing and the modification. And that's part, free of charge, part of the offering when DWS performs the upgrades. Just a note on standard objects can be quite consuming to upgrade during an upgrade, and there's significant differences between releases. However, we found in this case that luckily those objects weren't especially heavily modified. So tools such as Visual Compare can be employed to identify net changes. The Visual Compare standard JDE Edwards tool, but have some inherent problems. So the DWS Dimension Professional tools provide a significant advantage to upgrading, and it realizes some serious productivity gains to the project team. Thanks, Dave. So if we look at the next one, which was a XE B7333 for the guys who know, to a 9.2 upgrade. So again, if we run through the stats, initially we found about 7,100 modified objects, potentially modified objects, and of 6,000 of those objects were normal objects, and 1,000 were version overrides. So again, going through the audit phase and engaging and looking what needs to be done, the details came out that the number of objects in the optimum list was down to 2,000 odd objects, representing a 60% reduction on the raw extract. So notable wins were identified in reports and versions that's not been run for a lengthy time, and objects being flagged as modified but actually was orphan objects. So highlighting and subsequently excluding 4,000 objects, the pre-audit phase identified a massive saving of some like 2,000 odd developer days of this major upgrade project, reducing the effort required from close to 3,000 days to just a little bit, like 700 odd days in the end. So our sophisticated dimension net change tools have been able to classify these 1,700 odd objects as pure customs. And as you heard just now when I was talking about the pure custom, where that's a significant win for the customer, and it helps up with the testing and the speed for the upgrade.
And thanks for that, Pierre. So as you can see, by using the dimension analyze tools and the service from DWS, we actually can eliminate a lot of things. There's no more sample top-down analysis of modification subsets. Sorry, I've actually skipped a slide there. The key thing with Dimension Analyze is that it's going to eliminate the risk of a lot of the things we've been talking about on your project, because we're going to provide absolute certainty and accuracy of the estimates for doing the upgrade of your modified objects. And we'll actually, as we mentioned, guarantee our estimates by giving you a fixed price, and we are very, very accurate and very confident in the results of our analysis. The results and the analysis that we do is a pure independent evidence-based review. We don't make use of the standard tables and the analysis provided by Oracle. We do our own analysis going right through the code set to make sure that we really know exactly what is being affected within the system, and we can produce very accurate analysis and calculations as to how much effort is going to be required to actually go through your upgrade. Huge potential benefit to you in not only reducing the risk of your estimates for the upgrade, but you can significantly reduce the cost and effort involved in the upgrade project itself. So to summarize what we've actually covered today, when you're planning your upgrade, the Dimension Analyze service from DWS is used in this planning phase to produce extremely accurate forecasts of the upgrade effort required, and it can reduce your modified footprint by up to 75%, thereby reducing your upgrade effort and costs. And in the next two webinars that we hold, in one next week and one in April, we'll discuss the execution and the testing of your upgrades in those next two webinars. Now, as you're all aware, 9.2 has been available for quite some time, so now is a great time to get up to date, get current, and then stay current, but by making use of the DWS services. Now, if you are interested in getting a copy of the white paper that accompanies this series of webinars on best practices for upgrading your JDE EnterpriseOne system, then you can go onto our website to the Contact Us page and you can request a copy of that white paper there. And if you haven't already done so, and I know quite a few of you have already booked on the next two webinars, but if you haven't done so yet, then you can go to the events page on our website, and there are links from that page to the upcoming events, the upcoming two webinars. So the next one for executing your upgrade is next Wednesday, March the 22nd, where the follow-up one on best practices for testing will be on April the 12th, which follows the Quest Collaborate event, which we're taking part in Las Vegas. Hi, for some reason my telephone line got disconnected there, so things went blank. Hopefully you can all hear me again now. We were just getting a question coming through, which I think will be a good one for Pierre to answer. That is, how does the Dimension Analyze service offering work with the Oracle Cloud solutions?
Yeah, nice one, Dave. Good question. And I'm also glad to hear that the audience is thinking about cloud. I was attending a technology forum the other day, and the technologist was saying that the question today isn't do you have a cloud strategy, is what is your cloud strategy? We've been in discussions with Oracle regarding the Oracle Platform as a Service JDE offering, and based on our understanding, the core architecture and fundamentals remain exactly the same. So you still have your three-tier architecture with the web and enterprise server, etc. So customers will still have the capability of customizing and modifying objects like we always have. So that's if your strategy is to move to the Oracle Cloud, our analysis tools on your current mod footprint will assist you with reducing your mod footprint. And now even more to ensure that you're not taking unnecessary mods into the cloud environment. We're always aiming for that true vanilla. So yes, we can help if you are going towards the cloud, or even if you're on the PaaS cloud. So if you want, just drop Dave a mail, and then we can chat more about this. I'm quite passionate about this type of technology topics. So.
Excellent. So I hope that answers the question. But as Pierre said, if you would like to follow that up in more detail, then just send me an email. Now we've got another question which has really got a short and a longer answer. This question relates to the extra tools that Oracle have developed in their recent releases, and with those extra tools, is the Dimension Analyze service still needed? Well, I'll give the short answer, which is yes, and I'll hand over to Pierre to give actually a more helpful answer than that.
Yeah, so we do get this one quite a lot. So the tools that shipped with Oracle give you some insight into the affected objects. And even in the newer releases, if you're looking at the inter-object dependencies, but I wouldn't really rely on the modified flag, and we've seen that in the past. And if you use the cross-reference, it's not as accurate as possible. And like Dave was saying, just the more scary part is if something has not been flagged in OMW as modified, and you're going to miss that out. So what we do is we don't just look at the flag. We actually open up the object specification. We build our own advanced cross-reference, and we looked into the code, the properties, the binaries, to see what's changed, even down to pixel level. So we go a lot more forensically into the analyze and estimation of the objects.
Great, and we're getting close to the end of our time together, so I'll just pick up one final question for today. For other people who've asked questions, if we don't answer your question now, we will get back to you with a written answer over the coming day or two. But the final question we'll take on the call relates to third-party interfaces. Do we include them as part of our analysis?
Yeah, so if we talk about interfaces, I need to segregate it out. So we need to think about interfaces from the third-party vendor itself, where the information is coming from or whether we're sending it to. But in the end, those interfaces translate into a transaction, and that information lands up eventually inside of JDE. So the bits that we include as part of the analysis would be the UBEs, the reports, the interactive applications, the import functions, the business functions. Business services is really a big topic at the moment, and the interoperability tables. So that's the JDE Edwards objects that we see as inside of scope and that we can analyze and tell you about the modification. So yes, we include, but it's the JDE side of the interfaces, and we just treat them like normal objects inside of JDE.
Lovely, thanks very much for that, Pierre. So with that, I would like to bring us to a close for today. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us at whatever time of the day it is for you. When you leave the session, you should be directed to a very short feedback survey, which will take you about 1 minute to complete. And we do ask everybody please to complete that, because it does help us with our future webinar planning and making sure that we are covering the things that you want to cover. So thank you all very much. Thank you to Pierre for joining us and helping us with the technical answers to some of those excellent questions from you. And have a really great rest of your day. Thank you and goodbye.